Hello, everyone. My name's Joe Diubaldo, and welcome to the show. So for close to 25 years, I've been a recruiter, I've been an entrepreneur, and I've been someone who's made it his life to help people build better careers and better companies. And I love this job. This job is addictive. And it's addictive for the simple reason that there's so much learning. I get a chance to learn from people who invite me into their lives and into their companies during times of massive transformation. And along the way, there's one key lesson that always stands out. We all get stuck. We get stuck as we think about what to do next. And I think that's where I might be able to help you get unstuck, to help you plan the next move and then the move after that. And for that reason, I'm inviting people in to speak about the big moves, the decisions, the changes, and the setbacks. And we can listen to them and see what we can learn. Let's hear what my next guest has to say. My guest today is Mumin Al-Shawaf, and we have the pleasure of speaking with Mumin, who is a friend of mine, and he's a distinguished tech executive. He has an incredible track record driving all these different functions and organizations. I seldom see someone who has played different roles with as much breadth as Mumin has. He's taken two companies from startup to IPO. He's done it by operating and working in functions like your operations, your product development, your sales, your M&A team, your customer success, often leading these organizations under massive pressure and significant growth targets. So he's currently the COO of Carbon6, and he continues to lead that organization and support their strategic vision. You know, his career is one that I've managed to learn from. And if there's one thing that I really admire about Mumin, it's his ability to ask us questions about what's next and to challenge our thinking on how we're going to accomplish those things that we're planning to do. So let's dive into his career journey and let's talk to him and see what lessons we can learn.
Thank you, Joe. Glad to be here.
So I think it's always important that people understand why we're talking, and to do that, like where you've come from and the things you've been a part of over your career, because they're quite interesting. So give us a quick rundown of what you've done with your life.
As you know, I'm a trained programmer. I finished computer science back when dinosaurs used to roam the earth. But I was trained as a software engineer, a programmer, and I started my career in development. At some point in my career, I realized that I love programming. I'm good at it, but there's part of me was missing. What I was really more interested in, like this software, when it's released, how are you going to sell it? Who is going to be interested in it? How are they going to use it? And I got to a point where I made a decision that there is something missing, and I wanted to go, and I didn't see myself being a software engineer and be the best software engineer in the world. I came to that realization in my early 20s. And I found there's a part of me where I want to be interacting with people. I want to talk about value. I want to lead people. So at that point, I knew I need to make a career change. And at that point, with not a lot of clarity, you know, early in your 20s, you have no clue what's going on in the world. You just think you are smart.
We're not smart.
Yeah. Oh, no, we're not. As you age, you know that.
You realize how not smart you are.
Yeah, exactly. So I studied software engineering, and big skill in software engineering and programming is when you are deep, you have to be good with numbers and you understand numbers and all of that stuff. But the other part of it is they teach you in computer science how you can take a big problem and how can you break it into smaller components, solve those smaller components, and then put it together as a big software. And that skill set is where it based my entire thinking about my career. That skill set can be transferred to business. Because when you look at business, it's usually you have a big problem and then you start tackling the small pieces of it and you put it together. And then I looked at the other side. I love leadership and I love business, but I realized very quickly that I have zero training. I have no clue what that is. And then I started looking at what does it take for you to be a leader? And And I didn't focus about it in terms of like, how can I lead a customer success team or how can I lead a sales team? It's what's a leader at that fundamental level? What are the skills that you need to look at? And I remember I put the list and all of the things that you need to look at for you to be a good leader. Like if you start doing like your research, like the personal mastery about self-awareness, self-regulation, interpersonal skills, strategic, the influencing, all of that stuff. Like some of the stuff I've never heard of in my entire life. I just wrote it down. I was like, okay, great. So there are a lot of things that I need to go and learn. And what I found where at that point I was at NetSuite, and what I found where I'm going to be able to go and add a lot of value at the time is how can I go and help them with process? Because as I told you, writing process, taking something complex, break it down into smaller components is something that I have some backbone in it, and I liked it. So I remember at the time I was, okay, so if you want to be the best at that, what do you need to do? And I went into it and I started learning a little bit more. Like if you are a process, if you want to get into process optimization and all of that, like who are those people, right? And I remember at the time, it was Lean Six Sigma, right? And I was like, what the heck is Lean Six Sigma? And I started researching that. And it's funny, when I was talking to our VP at the time at NetSuite, I saw a book behind him. And it was like Six Sigma for services. I was like, maybe there's something with that.
And which organization was this with? Where'd you see it?
NetSuite.
NetSuite, okay.
Yeah. The VP James Balto at the time. And I remember I looked at that book and I went back and I did more research and said, okay, it seems like it's a thing. And if I want to acquire these skills, at that point is like, either I'm going to go and learn from someone or I need to accelerate it. And to accelerate, I figured out like there are programs where you can become a certified Lean Six Sigma. I looked at what is that and what it means. And I remember at the time, I found this program with Schulich where you can become a black belt Six Sigma. And it was like $15,000 to get into that program. And as a broke 21-year-old, I was like, do I need to make that investment or not? And I remember I thought like, I probably should invest in myself. If I want to do this and I like it, I need to invest in myself. So I remember I went to James, the VP, and I told him, I want to go and do this. But if I do this, I would like you to give me the opportunity to go and apply what I learned to go and help you. And he goes, absolutely, go for it. I'll pay half. And I remember I took that course, and even though like we went to the same MBA program and we continued like in that path, I remember that course fundamentally switched the way I think about business. Because when you look at Lean Six Sigma, it's not about just the process optimization and all of that stuff. It opens up, remember that list that I told you about, like change management and influencing and all of that. It gave me all the foundation of what is it going to take for you to identify problems. And Six Sigma, by the way, it's very heavy on data and very heavy on looking into the data I'm trying to identify the problems and measuring the problems. So it was really in my wheelhouse, like the data and the process. And so I remember going through that course and coming back, and I was able to go and drive some serious improvements in the organization, just because I chose to, I chose to be the leader. Like a lot of people, when I see people in my career and people report to me, they're all sitting on the side and waiting, what's my next promotion? And
yeah, I've always wondered about that, because there's that specialist track and then there's the leader track. And so many people are saying that they're waiting to be identified as a leader, but it sounds like what you did was say, I want to be leading. What does that look like? And then how do I acquire those skills? So it seems far more conscious to me. Am I right?
Very conscious. It
Okay.
was extremely conscious. I didn't wait to be the leader. I went in and I said, what are the skills that I need to acquire? Because I said, this is what I'm strong at, and I want to be the best in the world at it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a journey, right? And it's like I've been on this journey now for 20 years, and I'm still learning. But it was a conscious decision that I want to build my skill set in there. And I looked at where am I strong? And I said, how can I take my existing skill sets and apply them in the area in leadership where I can excel even further? Like if you think about it, there's this concept of like skills layering, where you can, for example, if you are good in data analysis, you can be the best in the world in data analysis. But where you can become more unique when you are able to go and layer skills on top of that, even if you're not the best in the world at it. But if you take that person very strong in data analysis, and then you layer, and they know a little bit about the industry, and they know how to present really well in front of customers. And now you are building a very unique persona where you are, as the whole, you are a very unique person in terms of what kind of value you can add to the organization. So the way I built my career is there is the focus on I want to be the best leader that I can be. And in a very systematic way, I start creating a plan. If you want to be a good leader, there is a journey on self-awareness. There is a journey on how to motivate. There is a journey on how you can present data. I remember that was one of the the hardest part for me, is because I was very strong in data. When I wanted to present, the storytelling was a struggle for me, because I'm leaning always towards on what's strong in terms of like presenting the data, and this is what everyone needs to believe me now because of the data. But how can you use the data to tell the story, to ignite a feeling in people so you can motivate them and move them or influence them? So these are like a lot of skills you can have to layer.
I want to double click on that for a second, which is the skill layering. And this is important for all of us because we are trying to do more often, or we look at a job and say, hey, I'd love to be doing that job. But what you're articulating is that there's a layering of skills that'll enable the success for the individual in that job.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you were stuck in that moment where you had the competency of data analysis. Did you find yourself failing when you were trying to do presentations or the next level work? Were there things, and how did that unfold?
There are moments where the learning will click. I don't know if that makes sense. But sometimes you will go in, you're very confident, you will go in and you will present, and then the presentation is not going to go well. And you're going to say, what the heck happened in that moment? And then you will start looking around the people you trust and say, where did I go wrong? And they will tell you where you went wrong, and it's still not going to click. Or sometimes it will click, but you will not know how to fix it. You know what I mean? So someone will tell you, well, you went deep into the data and you lost everyone. Your audience don't care about the data. They want to jump to the recommendations, and you should not give one recommendation. You should give 2 or 3. And then you go and you tell them choose. So all of these techniques and stuff, like it will click, but you will not understand. Now, what's the key is once you identify that there is a problem, don't leave it for luck, right? You know where you need to go and dig deeper, and knowledge available everywhere. So for example, in this scenario, I remember I said, like, I need to learn how to present. And I remember there's a book that was written by one of our professors at Kellogg. It's called How to Wash a Chicken. Absolutely. The title is funny. But I went in there and I read that book and I devoured that book. The book is amazing on how you can go and present. And then you take it and you say, okay, these are new techniques. how I like this technique. Let me dig deeper a little bit. What can I find here? I found also another technique that I learned when I wanted to build that skill was before I present, I pre-present.
Are you just
Before I
talking about preparation, like spending a lot of time working through, and or are you talking about doing it in front of individuals?
Exactly. So what I would do after I learned some of these techniques and I went and I said, okay, now I need to go and apply it. So I take these techniques and I make a presentation, a second version of the presentation where I think I actually nailed it. But then you go and you say, hey, John, I'm going to present this and I want to run this by you. And I want you to give me feedback on where am I missing. So you will get that feedback. And then you will take it and you will talk to someone else and say, and you will get that feedback. This is like some of the techniques on how you can nail the presentation. And every single one of them, because you go and say, I need help, they will give you help. And they will give you feedback one-on-one at the moment as you're presenting. And you do that multiple times. This is more of like the deliberate training.
You're talking about a level of preparation that people don't do.
Yeah.
Most often they don't, and they likely don't get the feedback loop from showing someone the presentation ahead of time and hearing them tell you, hey, I would look at this in more detail. I would avoid these topics. And ideally someone who is that audience that you'll be presenting to. I don't think any of us take this seriously enough. And we all know that, you know, when you've prepared constantly and then you've had people evaluate the presentation and then you incorporate that evaluation and make it better, like what comes out of that is compelling. And for everyone listening, whoever doesn't think that this is happening by the best presenters and that people walk on and just wing it and it's exceptional all the time, I think the clinical approach that you're talking about is something people should listen to. So Mumin, you've been talking about leadership and the development of skills and competencies. And I think we all look at that when we're saying, what does it take to be a leader? But I want to make this more complicated. You were acquiring these skills while you were going through hypergrowth in more than one company. These companies, what did they start at when you were there? What did they end at? And then talk about how you keep growing with that kind of pressure happening inside the organization.
Absolutely. So the companies that I started with, some of them I joined them like very, very early. Let's say pre-Series A, like around the seed. I've never started with a company where they were just an idea and they wanted to go and do product market fit. Majority of the companies that I joined is there's a product market fit and they want to start scaling. So that's my sweet spot around there. But like one thing, and I remember when I first started with Carbon6, and we were very early, like when I joined Carbon6, we were like in this single digit in terms of revenue, like low single digit, frankly. And I remember I had a conversation with the CEO, and I told him, when a company is growing, people are left with two choices. Either they are going to be able to break through the glass ceiling or the ceiling and grow with the requirements of the business, or they have to step out.
You mean step out of their role or step out of the company altogether?
It depends.
Can their role change? Got it.
And I've seen people move away and do a different job, and I've seen people where they continue to grow. And almost every single company that I was part of, when they started small and they started going into like the journey of 10 million, 20, 50, 100, the executive team change. Like in the previous company in Top Hat, the executive team changed 4 times because the persona and the skill for someone to take a company from $1 million to 2 million to 3 million to 5 million, and then above that, the skill set changes. right? And the personality, or like who you are and what can you go and deal with, it changes. So for me, it was very high pressure because going from a company where you are starting at a $2 million revenue, one and a half and 2 million, and ride it all the way until it's in the close to the 100 million, the requirements will change, and the pressure on where am I today and where I need to be, you can't leave it for luck, because the business is going to evolve very quickly, and you are going to go and say, what value am I adding? What value do I need to add in the future? And what opportunities might come that I want to be ready for? So if I want to go back to Top Hat, for example, when I first started with Top Hat, I was in the finance team. They hired me. The CFO at the time, he used to work with me at the previous company at Eloqua. And after we exited, he called me and he said, do you want to come and join this business? You're going to have to take a massive pay cut and we might run out of business in 3 months. I was like, great.
Sounds great. I'm in. Let's do it.
I'm in. Pretty much. So when I joined, I told him, so what do you want me to do? And he said, come, and I need your help in finance. We need to go and raise a round. And I remember at that time, I've never done finance before. Zero. I had no idea what a financial model actually looks like. I've never actually calculated LTV for an investor. I've never built a presentation for an investor before. But the reason he wanted me to come and work with him, because he knows who I am. And he saw what I've done in the previous company. And I was like more in the customer success side. And I remember that was very, very hard. I had to go and learn all of these things. And I had, like, there's a price. Like, it just doesn't happen with luck. I remember I would come in, I would say, how do you calculate LTV? And then I will go in and start hunting the data. And then I will have this data, and I have to go and learn all these complicated Excel functions. There was no GPT at the time. I had to go and learn all these Excel functions to go and be able to clean it, organize it, and all of that stuff.
So Mumin, that's a very odd place to find yourself inside of finance. And I'm curious, you said he knew you. I mean, along the way, you had gone and done your MBA as well. And
yes.
And there was I guess there might have been an appreciation of some new skill, but that's a big jump for him to make, to invite you into that role. Why do you think you were selected?
Because of my analytical skills.
Okay.
And because he knew about my work ethics.
So skill development and work ethic. Okay.
Right. And when I stepped in, I wanted to go, and I told him I want to learn this skill. I told him in my career, part of what I want to do is I want to be able to understand finance very well, because you learn it in the MBA, but it's nowhere close when you have to take finance and actually translate it into day-to-day tasks and make that a beautiful model actually happen in reality. It's completely different skill set. So I remember I came in and I had to go and work with that and work with them on the financial stuff and building the deck and helping them with raising capital. And these are all new things for me. But at the same time, while I was doing that, I was trying to go and acquire these skills as fast as possible. So think of it like, and I can give you another example, but think of it like you are binge learning as fast as possible. Because there's one piece of statistics I read at some point in my career, which 50%, like if you spend, and you can Google it, if you spend 20 to 100 hours on a skill and you acquire that skill, you will be better than 50% of the population. And if you spend close to, I don't remember the number, 500 hours, 1,000 hours, you will be better than 70 or 80% of the people. in that skill. So that stuck with me, right? Especially when we go back to the skill layering and how can you start binge learning so you can fill that gap very quickly. And I can give you a couple examples where I had to do this. But for me, that's where it started. And then you go in and you start executing very well. And all of the sudden now they say, okay, especially in these startups, they say we need to go at, there's a position, we need to fill it quickly. Who can take that position, right? And automatically they will think about, okay, who has the skill to be able to step in and do this? And I remember that was at Top Hat when they said, we have a sales organization, we don't have a leader, we need someone to step in. And they came to me and said, we want you to go and run sales.
I see this as I look at your background, that literally you're brought in as the senior director of operations and finance. You spend 18 months there, and then you're the head of sales. That could not be more divergent in terms of a path, right?
Exactly.
So there's faith that you can do these roles, and also there's availability, like you're available to do the role. And that, does it become something where's the biggest fire? Is that what happened?
Sometimes it's the fire and sometimes it's the need, right? So it's easier, like majority of the leaders will ask someone they trust and they have faith in his ability to step in to go and fix that problem than trying to go and hire someone from outside and they have no idea what's going to happen. Because not every hire is going to be a great hire.
No.
But if I know someone that can do the job, the probability that this person is going to go and move something in the right direction, I have more faith in that predictability than hiring someone in. Even if that person will step in temporarily and help me achieve what I need to go and achieve, then I can go and get someone who has more expertise in the domain later on, then that could happen. And that's basically what happened. Like when I moved to sales, after that, I moved to customer success. So I ran sales for like a year and something. And I remember like at the time, sales did really well, but sales works. You have customers. If you don't take care of customers, the bucket has a hole. So now like, okay, we need someone customer success who's the best that we know that can actually move the needle. And that's when they look at it and they said, that's the person. And I was like, okay, I will take that. Let's go and hire someone on the sales side.
So for you, it's interesting. You actually end up with this detour into operations finance, and then coming back to how it all started for you, I guess after the initial development role where you are an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you moved on to sales. So you're coming full circle.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that in these startups, you're actually doing all these different roles. They talk about founders who often run customer success first. Like, they'll be the engineer, but then someone has to run customer success. Someone has to be doing sales, and you're getting this rotational program just by the fact that there's an absolute need for this to be done by someone.
There's an absolute need for sure. And the other one is like, who's the person that has the most highest probability of actually fixing this in the company. And that's how they make the choice.
Let's look at this as a lesson that I want to take away, which is people are often concerned about taking a role where they haven't been successful before. And this doesn't seem to be, at least from what I'm hearing from you, a major concern of yours.
Because for me, I look at every function I step in, there are two layers. There is, can I be a great leader that will change, understand the business, understand the levers, build the right team, figure out the right tactical, executional things that we need to do to actually drive the right things, so that you have that piece, that layer. Then there's the layer, which is like the expertise in that function, the domain expertise. So you step into sales. I've never run a sales organization before. I've been a salesperson, but I've never run a sales organization before. To me, that piece versus that, you can't be like, you can't understand how to run a sales team. But if you are weak on that section, the top section, how to be a good leader that is able to execute, you will fail miserably. But from my perspective, if you are solid on this is very easy to go and figure out.
I find it fascinating. No, I find it interesting because you're talking about the way that you break down a function with leadership competencies and then domain knowledge below it, and where there's the gap on the domain, you binge learn and you try to build that competency. But
I hire someone. Yeah.
Or you hire someone. And I have to ask the question though, like where have you been humbled and been completely smoked? Where you're like, oh, that didn't go well. Where you didn't realize how difficult one of these roles was. And you can succeed long term, but like, where was the humbling moment in this where you underestimated the complexity or the pain?
So there are some scenarios where you can take it to a very specific level. And then after that, you have to step away and say, we need to go and hire someone that was more experienced in this. But this is where you know where your limits are. So for example, if you are in a, for example, for me, where it worked really well is because we're always in this under $100 million. But like, if I am in a situation where they are going to ask me, hey, Mumin, come in and step in, and you're going to go and run the sales department for a company that is multinational, I will fail. I will say, I cannot do that. I can help. I can get someone who's an experience, and here are the skill sets that I can go and bring to help them. And that happened when I was, they asked me to go and jump into marketing. And very quickly at a top hat, and very quickly I was like, I can go and get these operational stuff working. I can go and get this done, but no way I will be your marketing directors. I cannot be the person that is
marketing,
brand, figure out what's the team, figure out the messaging. It cannot be me. But short term, and like, you need to know where your strengths are or not. But a short term, I'll be able to go and fix the pipeline. I will fix the marketing pipeline, the metrics, make sure these leads coming in and flowing in the right direction. This is my strength, and I will be able to fix that in the 6 months. The moment you want to go into the brand building, I can't do that.
I think the inputs and the outputs for you, the analysis of what goes in and measuring what comes out and then tuning that, is the competency that you bring to everything. And then when you run into marketing, there is an element to marketing. I mean, it's one of the most turned over roles in any company, but the bringing together, and I think it is an input output driven function to a degree, like all of them are, but those inputs have some different flavors than what a lot of people are used to. You've talked about hiring quite a bit, and you know that I love this space, and you've tried some interesting approaches with hiring that had both positive, I assume, and some not so positive outcomes. But I'm curious, like, where were some experiments run? What were they? What were the outcomes? What were the unintended consequences? Because you've had to go to these organizations as they're going through rapid scaling. And I remember just hearing some of the stories of how you had to grow the BDR team or how you had to do something. Can you share some of those?
Yeah. Hiring is a very important skill. If you want to go and build an organization, you have to know how to do it. And one of the major learning that I got from it is you will never nail it and get it 100% right all the time. Everything that you're gonna do is going to improve your odds. And the reason I'm mentioning this is I run across people or across leaders where when they start hiring people, they have this persona where I'm really good at it, and whoever I'm going to hire is going to be great, right? But in reality,
Mumin, I've got this. I know I've got this. I know what I'm doing. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, and like, so they come in and they start the job, and you will find very quickly there are gaps. And then when you point out these gaps, that leader that has this, I am so good at it and I can always get it right, they will start going in the direction of, I got to fix this very quickly because I have a track record I cannot ruin, right? So that humbling, where the reason I always say that, and I always give that lesson to everyone that I work with, is you will make mistakes and it's okay, right? The most important part is like once you once you make a mistake in hiring, take action quickly, right? Especially if the fit is not skill, the fit is culture, right? So part of hiring, so that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned. And then when I look at like, how do I do this selection? How do I get the right person in? And the way I look at it, there are basically, it depends on the job, of course, and how much you are going to have to go more into rigorous selection. But I always look at three things mainly. The first one is their skill. I want to go and assess their skill. Do they have the skills required for the job today, right? And this is one of the situations where in some scenarios, it depends. I'm going to mass hire, I do it differently if I want. So for example, if I have a support job position and I need to go and hire 50 people, do I want to do the first interview, then the second interview, then I give them the tech assessment? Or should I go and start with that? Because if someone is not meeting the technical assessment part, there is no point. So that's one part. So I always try to go and figure out a case study that fits the actual job that they are going to do. And I give them the opportunity to go and demonstrate their skill in that job. So that's one thing. What's one learning that I do? A lot of companies and a lot of people I know, they just don't do that, and they just look at the resume and they have the conversation, and then when that person is on the job, okay, big mistake. So that's the first one. The second thing is that I look at is their passion about the job. There are some people that are good at their job, but they're not really passionate about it. And you look at passion in terms of like, for example, I've seen people, they for fun, they will code, or they will create these interesting things that has nothing to do with the job, where they're just doing it for fun. They're passionate. They want to learn more about it. And those two are very important, right? And the reason they are very important, if you are passionate about something, really passionate about it, and you have a skill level and it's your job, if you're passionate, the skill is going to start skyrocketing faster. If you're not passionate about it and it's just a job, your trajectory is going to be much slower. So passion to me is extremely important, especially for the early jobs or the most junior medium, because if I want to think about where is this company is going and what's the bench, I need people with passion for the job, and it's something they love and they want to be the best at. And the third component, and this was like a very difficult, that was the hardest part, where I struggled with nailing this one, which is culture fit. And everyone talks about culture fit and will this person fit or whatever, but like it's always wishy-washy. Like the culture is like, what is culture, right? And you have a bad culture or you have a good culture. What does that mean, right? But with time, I realized, honestly, there is a company culture. There is no bad culture or good culture. There's a culture that this company is. They are intense, they are fast, they are chaotic, but that's the culture, right? Now, you cannot hire someone that thrive on stability, thrive on I have work-life balance expectations, and take that person and make them work in this culture and expect them to thrive. So who's your culture? Own that and hire in it.
You have to accurately describe it, and you have to say, like, in vivid detail, because culture, when you look at it, is really, what do we believe in? And from those beliefs, what behaviors arise? Like, do we believe that we are shipping we're hitting our deadlines to ship, and we will do everything to make that happen? And the interesting thing about this is what we believe in will drive the behaviors, and those beliefs are often different by team.
100%.
And you have subcultures.
But like in the end, you need to bring the right person to that company. Right?
Totally.
You cannot, and what I've seen before in other companies where they really don't know what their culture is, and they
don't accurately describe it. They don't describe it properly.
And it becomes like a more inclusive for everyone culture, which basically you have no culture. Right? And I've seen that, and I've seen that fail miserably. So, but that's the third component, is like, I will actually ask the person in the interview, is like, what are they optimizing for? And there's no right answer, right? If they are optimizing for the maximum amount of money they can get because they have a mortgage to pay, I'm not that company. I'm a startup. I'm not going to pay you above market, right? So I need to know that, because even if you accept the pressure later, you are going to leave because you are optimizing right now for money. If you are optimizing for work-life balance, today, as a company, as a startup, work-life balance of like, I will clock out at 5 o'clock and I will clock in at 9, that is not us. But if you are, absolutely, I want to know that. And if it's not, I don't want you to come into this organization and then I failed you in terms of like not setting your expectations. And this becomes a very broken relationship between you and this person that's going to come in. So for the hiring in general, the things that I look for, again, is the skill. And I really look at the skill, not just the technical skill, like the skills required for the job. Like part of it is I'm hiring a project manager, and part of that is they need to go and present very well in very organized way. So the case study, try to go and focus on this. I need someone that is able to go and whatever the job is. And this is hard. This is really hard, Joe. Like for you to go and write that case study, you need to think about it very, very carefully about what is this job is going to entail and how can I actually measure if this person will thrive based on their skill sets here or not.
So much to unpack there. And why it's interesting is because everyone has their own algo. And you're talking about the measurement of skill and competency, which is absolutely necessary, because without that, there's just too wide of a gap or a chasm to be crossed by someone. And you end up going into the way of drilling into that is to actually build the case study. And I agree that they are difficult to do and they have to represent almost a simulation of what it's like to do the job. And we've incorporated that into our hiring here. I wonder how people are going to feel about these simulations long-term, about the effort with the multi-stage hiring process and then having that, because we have it as absolutely everyone goes through it and you don't escape it. I wonder about it from two streams. Are candidates going to opt in? Are they going to want it? The second thing is, are you going to be disciplined about using it as a data point? Because I've seen and felt the temptation at times to not use it. And you can go into these justification modes. So keeping that discipline and rigor around it is hard, especially under pressure for hiring.
So in the beginning, you need to, like in the first interview, to get to know you, learn who you are, and you see like there are the first checklist is there. It's very critical for you to go and increase the demand from the candidate side that I really want to be part of this, right? I want to be part of this company. I want to be part of that culture. So that is going to be very critical, right? So you raise from the beginning on that first interview the excitement that is going to carry them through the process, right? And I'm not saying we're going to have to do 70 interview or 5 or 10. You shorten it, but I think what I found, when you raise in the beginning the excitement about the opportunity and the company and the job, people will be motivated to go and do the second part. If you don't do a very well job in the beginning, people are going to say, do I want to do this, blah, blah, blah. So that's one. The second thing, even if you do it and they don't go through the second one, do you want that person? It's a very valid question. Do you want a person that want to be part of this company, but they are not willing to go and showcase their skills and competency so they get us excited about that?
There's no magic box, and sitting across from people as they look for that easy button to press, what you understand is you can increase your likelihood of success, like you said, but it is going to be, we like to say, you're going to make the best imperfect decision given what you have in front of you for information, as long as you followed the structure approach.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I've learned is that we have these internal algos and we have scorecards. And I want to be explicit in the scorecard that you use when you're making a decision, because I've heard it from you previously on the decision to move to different companies. And I think for people listening, there's value in that. Like, how do you assess an opportunity and decide where to go? How have your decisions been made? Do you have an idea? Can you share it with us?
So I look at it from 2 layers, right? Who you are and where do you thrive, right? So for example, there are some people, they will only thrive or they enjoy working with big companies with big resources, with poor organization. For me, I know I don't thrive there. And I know that for a fact because when Oracle bought us, I wasn't really motivated or like not like more of like into the game the same way. And when I was with Microsoft, I decided to go for a startup, which at that point that was NetSuite. So I know for me, it is, I need to go into that stage of companies because that's where thrive, where I can apply my skill set in a better way. So that's the first filter, right? The second filter is I want to go, and if I'm going to join a company in a startup, I want to make sure that this company has a path to unicorn, right? And the way I look at it, I look at 4 variables when I want to join a company and if it has a path to unicorn. The first thing that I look at is when I look at the company, I assess the category, right, that the company is in. The category is very important because if the category doesn't exist, the odds of this company happening is very low. It's going to require a lot of money for them to be able to educate. So I don't think that is, so that I look at that. Now, if I look at the category and it exists, but there's no clear winner, if there's a clear winner, you're going to have to look for a niche. But like if there are no clear winner and there are some stars coming up, that is a really good sign. So when you see like there are 2 companies, each one of those companies 20 million, 30 million, and there's no clear winner, that's a very good opportunity because there's a category that is validated and someone is going to win, right? So that is the first criteria I look at. What's the category? And I try to go and understand that. The second one is I look at is like, what is the runway of it? What's the total addressable market for it? So if there is a category that is forming, but the total addressable market is $500 million, then okay, you're going to be the king of nothing, really, very small. So you need to look at like the 10 billion where you know that there is a way for some winners to be there and there is a runway. So I look at the total addressable market and it's very critical for you to have enough for this company to become a unicorn. The third bucket I look at is what is that flywheel? Did the company understand what that flywheel? how the company, how the customer is gonna come in, how they're gonna get the value, how they're gonna grow, and how it's gonna feed the flywheel, right? And if the flywheel doesn't exist, or it's like a one sale, you do it once and then you have to go back and try to sell it, or the scaling of it is very, very expensive. It's very hard for this company to become a unicorn at the time. But even in early on, if you can just see where the flywheel is, even if it's not very clear, but here are the components. There's an entry product, they come in, they use, there's an upsell path, and you understand that there's this, then the way you're gonna start thinking about is, we understand what the flywheel, now we just have to start figuring out, is it the right flywheel and how we can go and optimize it. And the last component I try to look at, like, do they have a moat, right? So if you look at it, okay, there's a good category, there's a massive TAM, and there's a flywheel that is scalable. Is there anything in here that is going to go and protect or slow down the other competitors that you have as an organization, that's going to extremely increase the odds of you actually winning? So these are the four things that I look at. And then I look at the people, right? Who are the people that are going to lead this company? What's their track record? Have they done it before? All of these things will help you mainly on, well, is that the team that's going to optimize the flywheel? And usually when you look at those four elements and you do your homework and try to understand the space, be honest with yourself, a lot of companies are not going to tick all the boxes.
And then at the end, you're looking at the team being like, and can these people execute? Are they the right people? Okay. That's awesome. I love that scorecard. Mumin, this was a blast. I actually reserve the right to come back to you and ask you for some more of your time on any one of these based on what people are enjoying and reacting to. I like how clear and concise you are in your thoughts. I also really enjoyed part of this on the skill development and how you break out the creation of competency within an individual, both for yourself and for people. And one thing I want to leave people with is Mumin looks at me all the time and pushes me, but Mumin will have a conversation with me and say, what's next? And why do you think that what got you here now will continue to get you further? So I really appreciate you continuing to push me, and I love the way you think, okay?
Thank you, Joe.
All right, man. Take care.
Take care. Bye.